All righty. Okay, so we have a handful of our finest tree stewards who are going to talk about projects that they have initiated, participated in, and just to give you all an idea of the amazing array of projects that are going on with Tree Stewards. Anything strikes your interest, you can reach out to people after the fact. We could put you in touch with them. And also just to kind of wet your whistle and get an idea of, wow, what would you personally be inspired to do in your own backyard, or add your elbow grease to projects. So without further ado, I will give you all over to Russ. All right, Russell Bailey, it is all yours.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
You want to take your
Um,
screen?
Good
You're
evening, everybody, and welcome to the new Tree Stewards. Welcome to our group. Russ Bailey, class of 2020, and I live in Alexandria. And one of the pleasures of being a tree steward has been learning about woods and parks in Arlington that I haven't seen before. Among them, Lacey Woods, Brandymore Castle, Fort Scott, Dominion Hills, parks along 4 Mile Run. But not surprisingly, my comments are going to be about opportunities here in Alexandria. And so Tree Stewards presents opportunities for participation in Alexandria year-round, primarily planting, tree maintenance, such as pruning, and their choices for people of all physical skills, whether you want to swing a pickmatic, or whether you just want to plan an event, or whether you want to do tree maintenance, or just set out equipment, or participate in a bigger event by doing logistics. There's all kinds of things you can do. The big long-term projects in Alexandria, I want to talk about two things: big long-term projects, and then very briefly about a sort of a one-off type of project that I was involved in the last 4 years. But the big long-term projects in Alexandria, the decade-long reforestation of Ben Brenman Park and Tarleton Park. And literally hundreds of trees have been planted by tree stewards in these parks. And those parks have just been transformed by tree steward. And you will see several events posted on Track It Forward. So take a look at those, see whether some of them would be interesting to you. We always need bodies. There's some more projects coming up. And what you will learn if you participate in this is you'll learn a lot of the whole cross-section of things that tree stewards can do. You'll learn how a long-term project can be set up. You'll learn how to plant trees properly. You'll learn how to apply for grant funding, learn how to recruit volunteers, and basically you can how to follow up with watering and tree maintenance. Ben Brenman and Tarleton have won Alexandria's last 2 annual beautification awards. This is really a tribute to tree steward Bonnie Petrie, who's been leading these projects, and to the Tree Steward organization as a whole. Bonnie, by the way, is a tremendous resource for all the various things I talked about before: how to recruit volunteers, how to get grants, how to set up big projects, how to deal with a whole range of tree providers. And so I recommend that anybody who's interested in setting up a tree program in your own neighborhood, Bonnie would be a good resource to talk to. So finally, I just want to say a quick word about the one-off event, about another somewhat different project. Was set. It was very prepared to cut 250 trees as part of a tree re-engineering project, or of a stream re-engineering project that they were going to do. a group of us, including a couple other tree stewards, Bill Gillespie and Rita Leffers, believe that what they proposed to do was unscientific. It was not going to achieve the goals that they attempted to achieve. They wanted to achieve the pollution reduction goals they wanted to achieve. It was also going to be detrimental, obviously, to the 250 trees and to a wetland that it was adjoining the stream. And so one of the things we did to drum up support for our cause is we held a series of walks along the stream and through the forest so people could actually see the forest, learn about the forest, learn about the wetlands, and visualize what was going to happen to the forest and the wetlands as a result of the project. And over the several weeks we had the walks, more than 200 people came to them. And almost every single one of the people who came to the walks wrote letters to city council. And that included the head of this Alexandria Environmental Policy Commission, the head of the Council for Environmental Action, the head of North Virginia Sierra Club, and the publisher of the main newspaper here in Alexandria, who wrote a series of editorials. And eventually, it took a while, but eventually this year, the city council decided not to do the project, and they even gave back the grant that they had from the state of Virginia to do the project. And so the point is that education of residents could be valuable in what you do, teaching, explaining trees, value of trees, explaining how government projects might affect those trees. They can be very valuable, and that sort of public outreach to residents is something that everybody ought to have in their toolbox. And over to the next person.
All righty, that's it.
That's it. I'll be glad to answer questions and elaborate later. I want to make sure everybody gets their time in.
Anyone of it? I think we could do questions. I mean, looking at the time, I think we should be fine. If anyone has any questions they want to direct to us,
or they could do them after everybody speaks.
Okay. Sure. Maybe put them in the chat.
Yep.
Okay. All righty. Then next up is Nancy and Stuart.
Okay, I just want to share my screen here and bring up the slides we have. We go. So, can you all see that?
Can you see the? You didn't.
No, we can. We just see the zoom
of
all of your face.
Wait.
So you hit share screen down at the bottom. There you go. There you go. We got it.
Very good.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Nancy will take it from here.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Oh, and thank you so much for having us. The primary reason we are tree stewards is because it gives us a tremendous opportunity to learn and grow under the direction and example of other tree stewards. They offer a chance to practice new skills and teach them to others, to become tree lobbyists, and to lead our own projects. You will find that even the most humble patch of ground can be transformed with time and attention. This is our congregation in Alexandria, where we have had this opportunity to learn and grow as tree stewards in Bethel's Chapel in the Woods. Here is a view of our forest
by the way, we're located at the 3000 block of Seminary across from Virginia Theological Center.
This is a view of the forest in 2002. No one ever went back there. That year, the Brotherhood put in a prayer circle, and the Boy Scouts followed with a network of trails and a bridge across one of two ravines. Still, by 2015, the trees and the ground were overgrown with invasives. A small committee started working on the mess, and by 2018, we had made some progress. A grant from a congregant permitted us to hire a company to spray, and that gave us enough ground to begin planting native species. Later in 2018, we had a watershed moment. We uncovered a car chassis in the West Ravine. We didn't even know it was there. It was so covered up with vines. On the day the chassis was towed away, we felt that the neighbors would no longer look at our forest just as a place to dump trash. Today, the chapel, you have to advance.
Oh, sorry.
Today, the chapel in the woods is used daily by congregants and neighbors. Yet we continue to have major challenges: neglected maintenance, almost 30 species of invasives, erosion, trash, trees that need attention. As with every activity, we have a need for volunteers. We have an aging congregation and a busy younger population. We need to build trust in the leadership. At first, we were not even permitted to plant trees without board approval, just pull ivy and other invasives.
So you heard about the challenges from Nancy, and we're lucky to be blessed with positive forces. And we have a committed, active group of volunteers, many of them tree stewards, master gardeners, and master naturalists. We have year-round monthly work days, which is always followed by a light lunch, so we get to know one another. In addition to the synagogue and brotherhood financial support, we receive grants and donations, and we have volunteer labor from the religious school kids going from preschool on up through 7th grade. We have enjoyed technical support from the city natural resource manager, the extension service agent, the state forester, and a volunteer landscape designer. With all these positive sources, here's what we've accomplished. We've planted many native trees and pruned and we keep pruning mature trees, even some of the smaller trees when they have cross branches. We also clear invasives with the help of volunteers, a landscaping company, and Invasive Plants Incorporated. We are able to create with the help of a forestry grant, we were able to create test gardens where we planted native trees and other native species. We removed hazardous and trash. We planted a wildflower garden from the Audubon Society grant, and we received a soil and water conservation service matching grant, which we matched with congregational funds, and we were given credit for our volunteer labor. So with that grant, we were able to terrace one of the ravines. We planted the ravine with plants that will hold the soil, and we put in step pools to slow the water. And that also reduces the amount of erosion. Last fall, with plants, material, and instruction supplied by Fairfax Relief, with the help of 36 students, 14 adult volunteers, and included several tree stewards. We planted 50 donated trees and shrub seedlings in 1 2-hour workday. Even with all this progress, things are sometimes uneven. But we persevere because the woods continue both to surprise and delight with every visit, and we invite you to come and join us there. And Nora also wanted us to mention that we're part of what we're calling an occasional tree steward committee in our Glen Carlin neighborhood in Arlington. And we advocate on behalf of mature trees. We help, we've taught neighbors how to remove English ivy. And we've also put together a tree walk, a self-guided tree walk. And we hope you might consider some of those activities for your neighborhood. So thank you.
And we're under the slides. Stop sharing.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you both so much. All righty.
Well, thank you for inviting us.
Of course. Next, let's hear from Steve. Steve, you are up.
Okie doke.
Thank you.
Can you hear me, Lori?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, great. Sorry, I had a slide prepared, but for some reason the audio wasn't working on my computer, so I'm doing this through my iPad and I can't show it. But what I wanted to talk about was a pretty neat program in Arlington County. First of all, I was a tree steward in 2022. I went through training, so I'm a pretty new tree steward. But last year, or this year actually in the spring, Vince Verwey, who's the urban forester for Arlington County, contacted NARA with an interesting request. And the request was this. According to the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance, any property in Arlington where there's a site disturbance of greater than 2,500 square feet has to have a landscape conservation plan such that when the site is developed, within 20 years, there will be a 20% canopy density from trees on the site. This is a requirement for the developers of the site. Once the house is sold, then the homeowners no longer have that requirement to maintain that 20%. So what the county does then is every time there is a site that's being developed like this, they go out with the site plan, essentially a plat plan that you have for your house. And they mark down the presence of all trees on the site, trees and neighboring properties that have, canopy that will extend over to the site. They list all those trees out. They calculate the tree density if it comes out, and then they determine based on the contractor's plans which of those trees are going to remain and which are going to be removed. For the trees that remain, then they add up what that canopy would come to, and if it comes up to 20% forest canopy over the whole site, then that's great. Most times it doesn't come up to that and there's a shortfall. So then what the urban forester will do will recommend different trees for the contractor to plant, actually go out and help them locate where to put those trees in, and have different species of trees or a certain number of the same kind of a tree to make up that shortfall, so that within 20 years you would have that 20% tree canopy. This is great. Well, the problem is it's been going on for quite a while, but once this is done and the contractor has the plan and then the site is sold, there's never been any follow-up to see what happens. What Vince did is he contacted Nora and said, hey, it'd be great to get the tree stewards to go out and do a survey and see what was the effect of this whole program. Are people actually following it? Are trees there? Are trees missing? What's going on? So We got 6 of us together, tree stewards. Nora was one of them, and we went out in pairs, and we looked at the year 2018 when a property was developed, because that would give us 5 years after the property was developed to see if the trees were actually established there. What Vincent did is he gave us the landscape plan for each of the properties. We would go out in pairs and we go approach that house and talk to the homeowner, gave them some information about tree stewards, about trees in general, asked if we could look at the property just to see what was there. And there was no obligation on them to actually let us into their property and let us do that, but also there was no obligation for them to actually follow the rules of the plan or anything. That was a completely voluntary thing. So we learned a couple. So there were, just to go back to it, there were 320 properties, greater than 2,500 square feet that were developed in Arlington in the year 2018. So 5 years later, in 2023, we went out and looked at 10% of them, 32 properties. There were, some issues. We started going out on weekends. It turns out people aren't around on weekends. And we finally figured out, the weekday during the late afternoon is the best time to go. That's when you can generally catch people at their house. We had some people that just would not let us on their properties. So we would stand out in the street if we could see what was going on. If they were like a corner property or there was like open land on the side of them, we could look at them. Some of them we couldn't. But we got some interesting results from looking at this. And what we found out was in the last 5 years, there were 233 trees planted on those 32 properties. Of the old trees that were on the property that were supposed to remain, only about 55% of them were still on the property. In other words, they had been cut down. Of the trees that were required to make up this 20% canopy density, about 86% of them were there. So we found out that, okay, we've got a lot of trees, but then in addition, there were over 100 trees that were planted that weren't even part of the landscape plan. So we got some good basic information from this pilot study. What we want to do now is in 2024, in the spring, once the leaves come out, is go out and expand this and actually go beyond the 10% and go out and contact some new homeowners so we can get a real good data set of what's going on so that we can report back to the county board, just how effective this Chesapeake Bay ordinance is. So to that end, we're going to expand the number of people that are going to help out. So if anybody's interested in being part of this, it's a really great way to see parts of Arlington you haven't seen before, talk to people about trees, tree identification, because you have to know that the type of tree that you're going to write down there for. So I just had a really great time doing this. So if anybody's interested in that, keep your eyes peeled, and we'll make an announcement in the spring when we start this up again. So thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Awesome.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah.
Isn't that if they go to the TreeSteward website, there's an article about what you did, right?
Yep. Yeah. Nora wrote a nice article about that on the website. Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, Noreen, you're up next. So go back to unmuting yourself, my friend.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll even put on my video.
Hey, fancy.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll start out talking more just about some general stuff. I mean, the projects that we heard about were pretty impressive. I've done a few sort of special interest things, but nothing on that order. I guess I dabble in a lot of things. When I started in 2020, the COVID year, and then we were kind of shut down for a few months after that. But, basically started looking at the listserv and just signing up for things that that came along, and found that that was a good way to build my confidence coming out, and sort of started connecting the dots with things that I had learned in class, and then seeing them implemented, on the training, on the work sites and so forth, when you're doing a planting or just being out there and you're learning about the different species and why they were chosen for this particular site for planting and so forth. You just learn a lot, and starts to build your confidence and build your knowledge. There's still a lot of things that I don't know, but don't be afraid to say that you don't know something. Hopefully the training has given you some idea of, resources, where to go to find answers to things. And then just, don't be afraid to ask people to answer questions, and say, I'll get back to you. There's a lot to know, and a lot of this is kind of like sipping from the fire hose, but over time the dots start to connect, and you start to build your knowledge. And then you find, like other people have said too, that you've learned about places that you otherwise wouldn't have gone to or learned about, and then you meet more people. So it's just a great way to expand your horizons. So anyway, I guess I do a lot of the outdoor events, and sometimes I think about buying stock in Bengay, but anyway, do a lot of invasive pulls and restoration plantings and so forth. I have a site of county land. It doesn't have a name, but it's a long 4-mile run here near my neighborhood, and have a co-leader with that. And we've done several invasive pulls there. We did a planting. We got the county nursery gave us some trees, 33 trees on Saturday, and we planted trees and shrubs along the stream bank. And so I will post those to the TreeStewards listserv. So hopefully maybe some of you will like to turn up there and help with my little Hell's Half Acre. Yeah, I guess another thing I would mention too is that, well, I'm also an Armin member, and I think a few of you are also Armin members, and maybe some of you are master gardeners. And I remember somebody telling me when I was considering taking the TreeSteward program, they said, "Oh, don't do that. You can't do both organizations, And I'm like, but I thought I'll give it a try anyway. And I have had no trouble being able to get my hours for both programs. Sometimes some of the events overlap, and sometimes I'll pick and choose which one I'll count as Armin hours or which one I'll count as TreeSteward hours. But I found that I can definitely work for two organizations, and especially two, now that there's so many things that you can do from home and you don't have to spend time driving and so forth. And another way I like to volunteer with TreeStewards is to help out with the Tree Canopy Fund events. And I've made some home visits, site visits, where people who are applying for free trees to plant on their private property, and they want advice about which species to apply for and so forth. And that's really fun. I always feel like I'm not going to know what to tell them, but when you get there and you get to talking, you find that you know more than you thought you did, and the people are very appreciative of you coming out and talking to them. And Tree Canopy Fund is also expanding into tree equity issues, where they're trying to get trees onto private property in some of the lower income neighborhoods where there tends to be less canopy and more heat island effects and so forth. And also a tree maintenance program to help people keep their mature trees healthy with pruning and so forth. And that's also a good way to learn. So I guess the only other thing that I would mention is that when you go into Track It Forward, you see it when you're selecting what the category of work that when you're reporting your hours, and there's an entry on there for commission work. And so what that is that there are some advisory commissions in the local jurisdictions like Arlington County, City of Alexandria, Fairfax, and so forth. I don't know about how all of them operate. I'm on the Forestry and Natural Resources Commission that advises the Arlington County Board, and it's all citizen volunteers. But you do earn tree steward hours for being that. It's not something you can just join like you would join a club or whatever. If there's a vacancy on one of these commissions, you would have to ask to join. They would vet you, they would interview you, and so forth, and then they would let you know if you were accepted to be a member of the board. And then you have a term limit or whatever. But it's a good way to stand up for trees with your local governments and do kind of some of the stuff that maybe Russ was talking about, where when something comes up where the board or the county commission or whatever is doing a development project is up or something, and there's going to be either trees cut down or whatever, the commission gives input on that and can help sometimes influence some of those outcomes. And then, well, I guess just one more obvious thing is that this is the first year that I volunteered to be on the training committee, and that's been a lot of fun. And you get to work with the instructors and get to do some of the outdoor events with the class, and in some cases I'm kind of still learning right along with everybody else. So anyway, I think that's about all I have to offer up, but I hope to continue to see a lot of you at some future events.
Thanks, Noreen. All righty. Next, we're going to hear from Scott. Your turn, sir.
Hi. Let's see. I approached this assignment with, well, first off, I think many of you know that I organize the native plant sale twice a year. I've been doing that for 20 years. But before I talk about that, I just want to talk about what I started doing as a tree steward after I first graduated. I was in the class of 2001, along with Nora and a couple other tree stewards. And the first thing that I did to get involved right after I graduated was go take part in tree plantings and invasive removals. Those were the easiest things. You're outdoors, you're working with other tree stewards, it's fun, and you're not talking to anybody, which frightened the hell out of me when I was a brand new tree steward. It was probably 2 to 3 years before I felt comfortable enough talking about trees one-on-one to somebody who didn't know about trees. And so it was, well, yeah, let's say about 2-3-ish years. And then I started helping out at farmers markets. We used to do 15 years ago, we would do tablings at local farmers markets. We don't do that as much now, but we do the Arlington County Fair every year. And that's a big, that's a 3-day event. But talking to people about trees, once you get comfortable with it, is, I have found it to be one of the most rewarding things about being a tree steward. It's always amazing. You're kind of amazed when you first take the tree steward class about how much you didn't know about trees, but then you start to forget. And when you talk to people who don't know about trees as much as a tree steward does, you're kind of reminded how much ignorance is out there about the basic facts of trees. And so it's nice to help at least, one person at a time. I also started getting more involved in organizations like there are all kinds of ways to get involved, like Steve was talking about, or like Russell was talking about, but just getting more involved in your neighborhood committees, if you have any of those. I joined the Park Fairfax. I live in Park Fairfax in Alexandria. I joined the Woodlands Committee, which was in existence at that time. Then after a couple of years, I joined the Landscape Committee too. And then I also joined the Virginia Native Plant Society. Like Armin, it cares a lot about it. It focuses on the plants, and Armin, Arlington Master Naturalists, is more of holistic plants and the flora and the fauna. But I found that very interesting, and I also found that going to sales or conferences was a good way to increase my knowledge as I started getting into native plants and learning about the relationships between the plants and the fauna. That, you know, I boiled down Doug Tallamy's basic argument that if you like, because everybody likes songbirds, if you like the birds, well, then you need the bugs that the birds eat, and they're native bugs. And then if you want the native bugs, then you got to have the native plants that the bugs eat, because they're not eating these Asian ornamental things that are in the nursery trade. So and then so basically there are, rather than go through them right now, oh man, I forgot to set my stopwatch. Darn it. If you have a question about where you could go to learn more, the National Arboretum does the LAR Symposium, for instance, at the last Saturday of every March. That's a great way. They've got some vendors, but they've also got fantastic speakers. And there are a half a dozen events like that around our area. And then, so there's lots of opportunity for getting involved, learning to talk to people, and broadening your knowledge of the I forget which one of the presenters before me mentioned that getting together at these continuing education kind of potluck things that the TreeStewards do a couple of 3 times a year is really fun, and you'll be amazed to learn again something that you didn't already know. That's one of the most rewarding things, talking to people and finding out how to expanding your knowledge about things you didn't know about trees. It's amazing that trees have been with us since we were apes, and we are still learning so many new things about trees, even just recently. Lastly, I want to talk about the native plant sale that I organized, which, you know, is about plants, but it also includes a lot of native trees get sold. And I'd like to share my screen. Let me do this. Share. So I was talking to, as I learned more and more about native plants and trees, I was becoming passionate and talking to my neighbors. And one guy said, you know, it's great, Scott, that you have this knowledge and this appreciation for native stuff, but, you know, I don't have the time to go to some native plant conference and sale up in Maryland or Pennsylvania. I just want to go to Home Depot and buy some stuff. And I realized that you needed to bring the plants and the vendors. Green Spring Gardens does a great sale twice a year, and they bring a lot of vendors that sell native and non-native. And I thought, what if we do it just for the native? And so I got permission from my neighborhood, Park Fairfax, to start having vendors. And in 2003, we just had 5 vendors. This picture was taken in, I think it was taken in the spring of 2011. So after the sale had been going for about 8 years. And at that time, we were excited if we got about 600 people showing up. This is the fall. I think I can count. We have probably about 8, 9 vendors there. Here is, I think this is 2013. I have all these pictures because in the September Zebra magazine in Alexandria, there's a brief history of the native plant sale, and I gave them all these pictures to, and they used a few of them, but you can see it was a nice event. Here is my wife got involved. I don't know if you can read the tag, but mine says plant sale organizer, and hers says organizer's long-suffering wife. And people always love that tag on her. And then here's me, and people were bringing their kids and their dogs. Let's see, what do we, this is, in 2014, there was a little bit of a kerfuffle with the board of the neighborhood, the Park Fairfax board. And I had to move the sale outside of Park Fairfax. Otherwise, it was going to be taken over by a committee. And I didn't want to have a committee take over what my wife and I had spent, a good dozen years learning how to run. So we moved to a church just outside the neighborhood. It's on Quaker Lane, and it's the Church of St. Clement. And God bless them, they gave us a way to go. We did have to close down for 3 sales during the pandemic. We did the first sale in 2001. Everybody was masked. 2021, I mean. And then let's see what I have, other little cute pictures. Again, pictures of dogs and kids. And here is a picture of probably about 2022 or this spring, either this spring or a year ago spring, where now the sale is really popular. We're tending to get more, like over 1,000 people for the spring sales and over 700 people for the fall sales, which is really great because planting in the fall is actually the best thing. And oh, there's some dogs. I found out that hiring a guitarist was helpful in the fall to keep the crowd. It kind of helps sales, like it helps in the CVS, it helps at this plant sale. And then let's see, here's Jen closing up after the sale ends. Let's see, there's this was, I can't remember if this is, oh, this is in the spring of 2003. This is our best sale yet. We probably did between 1,000 and 1,200 people coming to the sale. So one of the plant taxis. This is me and Jen at the end of the sale, and as it's wrapping up. And I sense that I'm starting to ramble, so I'll just say I'll pass it along to the next speaker. But it's been really rewarding. I don't know if I would have started doing it 20 years ago if I'd known how much work it would be, but it's also been really rewarding. God bless the TreeStewards for helping out at these sales. It's thanks to my wife and the TreeStewards that this sale has continued for 20 years. So, and oh, I wanted to say one last thing. Let me stop sharing. One last thing. I'm sorry. Oh, I found it really rewarding in talking to people. You get to talk to a lot of people when you do a tree walk, and I have done more and more tree walks lately. And a couple of tips I have found. Now, you may not want to do, as new tree stewards, you may not want to do a tree walk right away, but if you do it with just a couple of friends, it's good practice. And the thing about doing a tree walk is if you find somebody else to partner with, you kind of have insurance for when you have a brain freeze, your partner can jump in and you can kind of play off of each other. I have found Jeannie McNair is wonderful, as she's an Armin person. And then Russell Bailey even helped me out in June. So Ginny and Russell together helped me do a tree walk in Park Fairfax, and doing about 2 or 3 a year for the past few years since the middle of the pandemic has been actually a lot easier than you would think it is. And there's a couple of tips, but rather than getting to the weeds on that, just contact me if you want any advice about doing a walk. It's easier than you think, especially if you have a partner. And I think I'll wrap up there and pass on to the next person, Terry.
Thank you, Scott. All right, Terry, you all set?
I am.
Yay, it's all you, my friend.
Hi, everybody. I am, like several other members, a member of Armin, as well as TreeStewards, and I was an Armin member before I did TreeStewards. So by the time I took TreeStewards last year, 2022, I had already started volunteering as an Armin, as a park steward for Fort Scott Park. And about the time we started our class last year, Otis Marchot, who is an arborist with Arlington County, started working for the county and contacted me because he wanted to do a tree planting. And it was a little overwhelming initially, but the person that really saved me was Nora. She's so encouraging, and I learned a lot from her putting an event like this together. And we conducted the tree planting about a couple weeks after we graduated in April. And I also learned from that event that it's better to plant trees in the fall because it took a lot of time to water those plants and keep them alive over the summer. But nonetheless, I went on to help organize another tree planting with Otis, and that was at Douglas Park, also in South Arlington. And that was interesting because it was the first time I'd ever heard of the Miyawaki style of planting, where you plant a whole lot of trees together. And that was also fun. It was just another opportunity to learn more about planting trees and working with volunteers and just interacting with like-minded people. I continue to do my park steward invasive plant pulls once a month at Fort Scott Park, and I always get interesting volunteers. And last Saturday, I had 8 kids from HB Woodlawn. It's a high school in Arlington. They have community service requirements, 40 hours a year. So that's a lot. That's as many hours as we have as Armin members. And some regular volunteers. Scott and not Scott, I'm sorry, Russ, I see, and Steve Geiger and some other folks on today's session. Another thing that we do during those invasive plant pulls is restoration planting, which is really fun. It's just a change of pace from ripping ivy off of trees. And I enjoy that. For this year, for the first time, I did the tree distribution event a couple weeks ago, and Nora was there. And I really enjoyed that. People are so happy to be getting a free tree. It's just, it's a fun event, and I'd like to do that again. I'm on the board of TreeStewards, which I'm sure Nora will talk about. It's been interesting as well. And when Nora asked me to join, I told her I wasn't that crazy about more meetings. I didn't become a tree steward or a member of Armin to have to attend meetings, and yet Tree Stewards only has three or four meetings a year, so it's not that bad. And it's a great way to know what's going on and to interact with other tree stewards, just in an indoor capacity as opposed to outdoors. And same thing with this training committee. This has been fun too. And I think that might be it. Yeah, that's all I have.
Cool. Thank you, Terry. All right, and now we're moving on to Nora. It's all you, Nora.
All on me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, you've heard my name thrown around throughout this time, and I just wanted to make it clear that I took the training in 2001, but for the first 10 years that I was a tree steward, I was still working full time. I had a very demanding job. I had to work weekends, overtime, all sorts of things. So I basically did events that came up, like invasive pulling removals or planting trees or helping with the tree distribution. And I wasn't as involved with tree stewards. I'd show up and do some of the farmers market tabling, because when you're working full time, you kind of have to, you just pick and choose where you're going to put your efforts at that time. But then I got retired. Well, actually, before I started retiring, I became very interested in a few things, like my local park, and wanting to know a lot more about Lacey Woods Park, and organizing groups. Once a month was all I could do. Once a month, we would meet on a Saturday afternoon and remove invasives. And then people were wanting to know about the park. So I started studying the trees and looking it up, and would lead the tree walks. And then it just kind of grew. And then whenever I started having more time is whenever I moved into doing a lot more, being the officer, being the president, helping to run the organization. But one of the things I wanted to impress on you is that you look at your volunteer career over a long time, because it's going to ebb and flow. Sometimes we'll have people that join us and then they get married and have their first child. And maybe they come to a few tree steward events, but eventually, they have to go out and be active with the child for volunteering. But then once the kid hits Cub Scouts or Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, they'll drift back in and say, hey, I want to lead a tree walk for the kids, or can you help us organize a planting? So once you're a tree steward, you always are one, even though you're no longer paying membership dues and coming to tree steward meetings. I was at an event a couple of years ago where they were honoring volunteers from different areas of the county. And I ran into a guy and he said, oh, you may not remember me. I was in the tree steward class 2 years after you. And he said, I'm really sorry, but I don't have time to volunteer with tree stewards because I'm now so active with the Arlington Historical Society. And I'm working with them to clear all the ivy and invasives out of the back area of the museum. And you think, you're still a tree steward. You may not be a member of us, but you are still a tree steward. And that brings me up to, let's see, I want to share my screen. Is this, yeah. All right. So, think. All right. I wanted to talk, everyone's been talking about what you can do outside and in the woods and all of that, but talking a little bit more about how you can pay it forward for TreeStewards of Arlington and Alexandria. And I wanted to make the pitch once again that TreeStewards is an all volunteer group. We don't have paid staff. So whenever someone says, you know, TreeStewards should do X or Y, my usual response is, you know, that's a great idea. I'll help you get it organized, because we don't have a paid person to do it. But some of the ways that, you know, even if you're very busy full time, you can work on things is our website. I hope all of you have read some of the articles on the website by now, because someone has to write those. Like, I noticed there's absolutely nothing on the website about this training class, and yet photos have been taken and I've been collecting them. It'd be great if one of you trainees would write like a little 4-paragraph article about what you learned in the training class, and we could put up all these photos of the pruning and planting, and we'll have photos from the December 2nd. So there's the working on the website, there's being on the board. And like Terry says, most people want to be outdoors, but we need people on the board. We have committees. They're not doing as well as they should be. I think our public education only has one person, and that's Scott. So people can help Scott Knudsen out, and Paul Kaplowitz is looking to do continuing education. And then we often have a need for people who have special skills, like Excel skills. I know next year we've got a survey we hope to do for the tree canopy fund, and it'll have about 6,000 trees that have been planted since 2008. And somehow all of these different spreadsheets need to be amassed and put in together. And then other volunteer events that you may not even be thinking of are like if you have a pickup truck, we currently have a list of 3 members who have a pickup truck, and we call them whenever we want to go pick up trees for planting or take wheelbarrows places, something like that. So if you have a pickup, let me know and I will add you to the list. We occasionally get, you know, I don't know how this thing got in here. It's funny formatting, but anyway, formatting and graphic design skills. As you can see, I'm not a pro at working on my computer, and even assisting the board with things like our Google Drive. Terry McPalmer and I were talking about this the other day and couldn't figure out why things were on my personal drive and other things are on a TreeSteward drive. And our VP Communications, Emily, is fantastic, but she works full time and she also has a demanding job. So, you know, it would be nice if someone would just give me a call and say, okay, I'll explain Google Drive to you. Here's how it works. Or come over and actually show me how it works. So there's a lot of ways that one can be involved with TreeStewards. And I hope the one thing you get out of tonight is send an email send an email to the listserv or to me or to Nancy and Stuart Davis and just say, I'm interested in knowing more about this, or I'd like to know how to get X done. Can you help me get it coordinated? Because somebody knows. It's, you know, it's fantastic being a tree steward, and you just kind of throughout your career go from responding to requests for volunteers to working up to that point where you're requesting other volunteers to come and help you with your projects. So that's what I've got. And I'm turning it back to you, Lori.
Thanks, Nora. Thanks, everybody. I hope this got all of you thinking about where you might be interested in dipping your toes to help tree stewards out, learn more things yourself, spread the love, basically. If anyone has any questions for anybody, now would be a good time to just unmute yourself and speak up. We're pretty laid back.
Lori?
Yes.
Yeah, hi, it's Noreen. I thought after I should have said when I was talking about if you get start a project on public property, like where you want to improve a park or something like that, you can do, I think, pretty much what you want on private property as long as you have the permission of the owner. But on public property, you need permission from your county or your city or whatever. So I don't know, Scott might want to, or somebody might want to talk about Alexandria, but in Arlington, just get in touch with Jennifer Souls. She's the one who taught the invasive plant class. And you can get her contact information from any of us if you don't have it, and just say that, I want to work and clean up this local park near me or whatever. And she'll get you started and get you the official permission and then provide support for you. But anyway, I just wanted to say, don't go ripping on things on public property without getting permission.
Yeah, I could add that even on
questions.
I'm sorry.
No.
I was just going to add on top of what Noreen said, that even on private property, like in Park Fairfax, you need to get permission from the board to do stuff in the woods. So you just want to maintain good relationships. That's really key. In Alexandria, the person to talk to about planting is really Bonnie Petrie. She knows so much about organizing and getting permission to plant places in Alexandria. Sorry, Lori. Thanks.
Hey, Anna, your question.
Sure. The question I have, I stumbled into a project on my own by Dumb Luck, and it's a church, and I don't know whether people refer to that as private or public. That's one question. But my overarching, it's loaded with wisteria, and it's 17 acres. And I kind of took that on by myself, and I'm at a point of over my head. And my question that I have is, there are power lines, Dominion power lines are going through a ton of those trees. And I'm not inclined to bring that to the attention of Dominion, because what I've seen, like on WOND, they will cut the top of the trees like a rectangle without a top. And so do we have any control when Dominion, if you call Dominion in, are we better off being quiet and let the trees fall? I feel bad about that. And it's a big set of trees that are adjacent to the sanctuary of this church. And I have people from the church coming out on November 11th to cut these wisteria vines that are wrapping around these trees. And I'm a little bit afraid whether when they cut some of those vines, is some of the vines going to fall on the power line? Is there anybody could be? I just don't know what I'm doing on that. So I'm over now. Whatever you can help me with, I appreciate. And I have pictures if you need to see it, but the question is, as I've already presented it, so thank you.
Let me just say that Anna is in Fairfax Station. So maybe you and I need to talk offline about whether that's Fairfax County that's in charge of it or not, because you need somebody skilled to go out there and look at it first and give you advice.
I will say I've had a Department of Forestry people to come. I had Conservation District to come. I've had Plant Nova, Market Fisher to come. But every time somebody comes, they see more and more items. I had invasive removal company to come. But my question is still out there about those power lines.
I think that's one that you and the church people have to figure out, in my opinion, if it's on private land.
Anna, how big are those vines that are hanging over the power lines? Are they like really big, thick, you know, do they have really thick, you know, structure to them, or are they kind of, how heavy do you think they are?
They are heavy. And it's just kind of exploded a little bit. I mention it, and so the regional paper is supposed to feature this whole situation in December on it, but no, they're choking.
Yeah. So I mean, you think of, I know you mentioned this before, and I had made a mental note to ask Jen Souls about it, but I haven't seen her. Do you say you had a picture of them?
I do, yeah. Lori, I can show you if you make me co-host.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, good.
It's interesting.
You know, I wonder if we want to get into this level of detail about that particular thing, because we've got, maybe we should stick to volunteering, and after the class, have Anna work with Noreen. And
I agree with that. It can go offline, but I do like to know the answer about the trees.
Well, Anna, send me an email.
I have a, may I?
Well,
chime in about the trees?
Why don't we take it offline?
Okay.
Why don't you guys start an email thread if that is acceptable to you all? Is that cool?
Yeah, that's fine. Send me a picture, Anna, and I'll send it to Jen and see what she thinks.
Thanks, Anna. Linda, your question?
Yeah, this is just a silly question about Track It Forward. How far in advance do you generally post events? Like when I look at Track It Forward right now, I can only see into December, and I like to plan things long term. So I was just wondering, am I just not using Track It Forward correctly?
No, I don't think anyone has anything planned beyond December.
Okay, I'll just keep my eyes open and check it for opportunities. Thank you.
I think most tree stewards are just trying to get through the fall.
Yeah,
all right,
pretty much.
And then when it's spring, you're just trying to get through the spring. I mean, winter and summer are like breaks.
Yeah, February things start to creep up back onto Track It Forward. We kind of all seem to take that winter blanket nap in January, don't we, though, for the most part?
Many of us. I think probably some of us that are in the pruning certified group, it wouldn't hurt if we put some of whenever we're going to be out pruning on the Track It Forward, just so anyone can
follow us,
join to watch and stuff. Not that,
that's a good idea.
And actually, Lori, right, January and February are the best times to do invasive pulls, because that's when poison ivy is like pretty much non-existent.
And a lot of rips are indeed monthly, so you can.
But they're not on our webs. Well, other than Terry's and those run by. I think we just haven't put ours up there on Track It Forward.
Yeah, Huh.
We should put some of our monthly stuff up there.
Yeah. We'll have to see if it can be set up as a recurring thing rather than put them in.
There's also somewhere on our website I saw where you can there's a link to volunteer events through Armin, and Armin has all the RIP events posted for Alexandria as well as Arlington.
You know, I'll look at putting that link to the ARM thing on Track It Forward. I ought to be able to do that like the first of every month so people can see it. Yeah.
Great. That's a really great idea. That'd be very comprehensive indeed. Ellen, your question? Thanks.
Ellen, you're muted.
Ellen, have you given up on us?
Oh, no. If you go to the Arlington County website and just type in Google Arlington County remove invasive plants, they have their own page, and that's where all the sign-up geniuses are for like the 10 parks that do invasive removals every month. And normally on that listing, I think you can post as much as 6 months in advance. Sign-up genius doesn't let you post for a year, but once those park stewards decide, do they do it on Saturdays once a month or Wednesdays once a month? Those, if you want to look into the future on their sign-up genius, then that you can see many months out, although they may be rounding up for the end of the calendar year, and you may have to look again in January when they post for the next 6 months or whatever. But I think that if you go to the Armin site and click on those links for the parks where they have invasive plant pulls, they're going to circle you back to the sign-up genius that Arlington County sort of coordinates on their webpage. So you go direct to the horse's mouth and go to Arlington's page, and you'll see everything that's going on in Arlington.
Thanks, Ellen. Hey, Noreen, yeah. Or did you have something else, Ellen?
Yeah. Oh, you don't. I was just going to point out that Nora has already answered it in the chat. Louise was asking about the requirements for continuing ed and volunteer service hours to be qualified as a tree steward. So, but Nora already answered it in the chat. 8 hours continuing education and 20 hours volunteer. Is it? Yeah, okay. Is it 20?
I thought it was 30 the first year and 20 after that.
Right.
Because then there's the intern period.
Right. There's 30 that you need before you can get your green polo shirt and become a certified tree steward, and 20 hours annually after that. But that doesn't mean that your first year you have to do 50 hours. Don't worry.
You want that shirt. The shirt is cool. I mean, when I first got my shirt, I was like wearing it out to bars and stuff. My wife said, stop wearing that shirt.
Right.
You are such a geek. It's a good color green, I will say that. Yeah. I say that with affection, Scott, just to be clear.
That's fine. I accept that.
Kelly was asking what counts as continuing education. On occasion, our continuing education coordinator will post a talk that he has put together. Otherwise, it does indeed vary. Nora, would you mind expounding on that a bit more?
Well, the board came up with a policy on this, which we've passed. Four board members here. They remember. And I think Terry sent it out to everyone. Yeah. We should probably send it out again to the entire listserv. But you know, it's like anything that helps trees in our region counts as volunteer work. Anything that increases your knowledge counts as continuing ed. How did you say it, Terry? We have a couple of partners, but
I'm looking for it, but I can't locate it immediately. But I think it would be a good idea to send it out again, and I'll do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many webinars out there from the Forest Service, the Extension, everybody that, I mean, it should be focused on trees. Like, you might be able to get an hour of continuing ed out of an insect lecture, but probably not.
Well, Doug Tallamy talks about insects, but he also talks a lot about trees.
Right. I mean, it has to be tree-related insects. Like if you went to an emerald ash borer lecture, that would count. Insects were a bad choice. Amphibians.
And a lot of that stuff people put on the listserv too. You know, oh, I've heard about this webinar coming up, and you know, we'll send it out on the listserv to let people know.
And if you all come across something that is interesting, you are welcome to post it to the TreeSteward Google group as well, and share your find with everybody.
Mm-hmm. In fact, sometimes people have posted like a New York Times article on the TreeSteward listserv, and I've never counted continuing ed hours for reading the article, but it's often been a great article. So
I think we specifically said on our policy that reading counts, but only if you write a article about it.
Oh, that's right. And I think we said reading for a book, not like a New York Times article.
Yeah, but if you wrote an article about it, we'd count it.
Okay. I think we're limited in how much you count. I think you count like an hour.
Yeah. I do remember it was an hour that we decided, and I can't recall those. I think it was only books we decided. Yes.
That's so sad. 4 board members, and we can't remember what we decided as policy. This is why someone younger has to join us.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
I am to someone younger.
I wrote it and I don't even remember. Shoot.
Maybe we should put a policy page on the TreeSteward website for things like this. But you need somebody who does website design for that. Like North.
Oh, I'd like to ask some of the new trainees how they hope to volunteer.
Can I interrupt for just a second? Because I see a question in the chat that we might want to answer before we go on. Leah is saying that she's an ARMAN member and does some invasive pulls and tree plantings. Could I count that as tree steward volunteer hours? Or if I attend a CE class sponsored by ARMAN that's related to trees, could I count that as tree steward? I'll just take a stab at that. I mean, I assume the same policy is true for TreeStewards. I know ARMAN doesn't want you double counting because I'm also a dual citizen. But I just pick and choose, like you say, if it's related to trees, then I'll count it as a tree steward, continuing education. And then sometimes with like the planting that I did in my little part on Saturday, it was technically put on by ARMAN, but I can count it. I might count like a couple hours toward ARMAN and a couple hours toward TreeStewards and just split it because we were planting trees. So I would just say you know, split it, count some one way and count some the other way, depending on how tree oriented they are, but don't double count.
You
Actually,
Maureen, you can't double count for service, but you can double count for continuing education.
You can.
Terry's right. We do have a defined policy on that.
Oh, okay.
And actually, I just found the document, and I'm happy to share it with everybody. But can I read it real quick? It's just a couple paragraphs. Any presentation, in person or online, which educates the tree steward about trees, including tree walks and lectures about the care of trees, qualifies as CE. All presentations provided by TSAA, the National Forest Service, Trees Virginia, Arbor Day Foundation, or other tree organizations also count as CE. And it talks about books and articles and clarifies that you can double count if you're an Armin member or a master gardener. And yeah, that's it. But I'll send this out again.
But double count only for continuing education, not for other, not for volunteer.
Not for hours, volunteer hours.
Great, thanks, Terry.
Sure.
So anybody have anything they want to chat about? Any projects, trainees you guys are keen to jump into, or anything of interest? Or would you rather go get another cup of tea?
This is Mano here. I was going to share my project that I've been working on. But before I do that, shout out to Scott. Scott, I know that speaking up is not often easy. I found great inspiration in your ability to interject and add a lot of value to any conversation. So thank you for doing that as I educate people. So I wanted to say thank you. Project-wise, before I joined TreeStewards, I had joined a project in Washington, D.C., maintaining and sustaining urban forests. So
you're fading out on us, Mono.
Oh, is that so? Maybe I will rejoin.
I can't hear you.
Rejoin. I'll rejoin. Somebody else talk. I'll rejoin.
Anyone else like to share anything that they're interested in doing or looking forward to? Hey, Mike. Change your mind? Oh, no. There you go. Go on, Mike. What do you have to say?
Mike? Mike and I had a great conversation at a coffee shop about some of his ideas, but I'll let him talk. Mike? Huh. Well, it's not related to trees, but I'm really looking forward to turning on the World Series after this.
Well, I will say I'll give a big shout out to Linda Golden, who has she's become the coordinator for the Tree Canopy Fund yard visitors. So she's getting all those requests for people who want to come out and visit. And that's my hand that keeps pointing up on people. But anyway, that is a big help, because that means Kate Donahue and I no longer have to assign all of these people. So.
That's great. Thank you, Linda. That's awesome.
Did Mike pop up?
I don't know. Is my mic working?
Yes, now I can hear you.
It is now.
Beautiful. I just want to shout out to build on what Scott mentioned, and this is very early on, is to figure out how to start taking and expanding a lot of the good work that this community is putting together in some of the underserved communities. Look at some of the past pilots, some of the past initiatives, and figure out a way, given the current technologies and how people learn, to see how some of the fundamental information, especially regarding some of the hands-on work, can be shared and informed in some of the underserved communities that become the next generation of talent and support for a lot of your initiatives. And it's still very early on, but I think Scott and I are going to start rounding the corner on this maybe over the holidays. So as we start building on this, we'd love to reach out to the rest of you to see what's been done, what should be done, and to take what is a community of people. You guys are on a pilgrimage, and how to expand that and create a larger community in a way that everybody can serve where they need to with the information we can provide. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see how it turns out.
Cool. Thanks, Mike. We will stay tuned to see how things come about. And Scott, of course, you too.
Yeah. One thing that Mike said, just adding to what Mike said now, he said to me at the coffee shop that if we can get people who, for instance, we had a tree steward a couple of years ago who was talking about reaching out to the Hispanic communities, and Mike was talking about the same thing. If you get information in the hands of people who, we'll put it this way, when you look at landscape crews around here, you see a lot of the Hispanic community, and if you can help spread some of the general knowledge about trees to this community, it will probably help with the way maintenance happens in Alexandria and Arlington. I don't know, it's just kind of interesting to talk about it with him.
Yeah, Scott, I think that the challenge we have is that it's an interesting idea, and I don't want to overwhelm the conversation with this, but I do love the energy that a lot of your peers have brought into how we can start creating enlightened compliance when it comes to how to plant trees and plants and how to take care of our environment that goes beyond what people have always done, and not change people's mindset, but start that subtle shift. I mean, already my learning from how every time I walk over my class, I realize what I have to redo in my yard. So, what can we do to help influence our communities as we go forward? Thanks. I'm out.
All right. Anyone else want to add anything before we tie things up? It's just about 8:30. Hey, Steward, you're on mute, my friend.
Mano is back.
Ah.
Didn't finish his...
there you are. Mano, did you want to say something?
Mano may have dropped off again.
Yeah, I think he's having a lot of troubles today. All right, well then why don't we tie things up and say, no, is he back? Goodness gracious me.
He's back, he's connecting.
Oh, you poor thing.
He sent a message that his audio is poor and not working.
Okay.
There he is.
Come on, we got enough to do. Just to hear that.
Well, hearing from people like Mano is something maybe we can do at the December meeting, the graduation, where we might have a little informal add-on.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Just real quick, before early on when we first got onto the Zoom, I think a lot of people hadn't jumped on yet, but we were talking about the Plant Nova Trees organization. And I just point out that if you go on their website, Plant Nova Trees, they have a lot of ways that you can volunteer as well.
All righty. I don't know about you guys, but my computer is at 15%, I just noticed. So, not to rush anybody, although I guess if the World Series is on, some people are itching to skedaddle.
Before you go, before you send us out, Lori, I just want to say you've done a great job leading the training session. I know we've got more in-person stuff to do, but I think this is the last Zoom meeting, and I think it's come off really well. I think it's a credit to you and to Terry and to Noreen. I helped.
You did well.
You did great, Lori.
All four of us, my goodness, we couldn't have done it without one another for sure. And I am grateful to each and every one of you, truly. Absolutely. It has been a blast, overwhelming at times, but absolutely well worth it. So, all right, guys. So let's just say goodnight for now. Okay. So we will see you all out there amongst the trees soon. Take care and have a good evening, everybody.
Good night, y'all.
Thanks, everyone.
Night.